Hey, Griever here. This is a quick PSA about safety. Remember, when modifying a Nerf blaster or anything really, proper safety measures should always be taken, and kids, always ask your parents before using any tools or power tools. So be safe, happy modding, Nerf on. What's up, YouTube? Griever here, and welcome back to another episode of Back to Basics. Today on this episode, we are going to be modifying this, the Nerf Retaliator. Now, this does come in a couple of different color options. There is this one, which is the now more commonly found one, which is the white with the blue accents. There's also a blue with white accents, which is the exact same blaster. There's also a special edition that Toys R Us carries, which is called the Sonic Ice Retaliator. It is the exact same thing, except it comes in slightly clear blue plastic and will cost you about an extra $10. This you can get at Target, retail for about $25, or if you happen to find one thrifting, there you go on that. But this is what we're going to be starting with. I have the tools that we're going to be using, along with a couple of springs, and go over, where to get that and all. And we're going to go into the workbench, and we're going to start breaking this down and opening it up and going over everything. Okay, so before we start getting into the blaster, these are some of the things you will be needing. Your screwdrivers, all of them, your Flathead and your Phillips. You will need some silicone grease or white lithium grease because we will be relubing the plunger head. Teflon tape because we're going to be doing the Teflon wrap underneath the O-ring so that you get a better seal on the plunger head as well. We will also be doing a spring replacement on here, and I have a few here that we're going to try and test off as candidates. This spring, I honestly just don't remember where the hell I got it from. I don't know if we're actually going to use it or not, though, because it does compress pretty easily, and I just dropped it. These two here, though, this is a Busby, I believe it was a Tech 4 spring. And Busby actually does have really beefy springs. And if we use it, we're not going to just pull the spring out of the Retaliator. We're going to add this to the Retaliator spring. I also have this, and I believe this is a 5 kilogram spring from Orange Mod Works. This came with one of my Retaliator kits that I have installed in one of my other blasters. If you do want, there are companies that do sell replacement or upgraded springs. 5 kilogram springs, 7 kilogram springs. 5 kilograms is usually a pretty good replacement spring, especially if you're going to be using stock ammunition. You can get these through Orange Mod Works. You can get them through Worker. There's a bunch. If you just look up Nerf replacement springs on Google, you will find replacement springs. But the other thing you will need if you're going to be upgrading that, and that is this, and it may not focus too well, and I apologize, but this is a upgraded catch spring. Now, you can get those through Orange Mod Works. I don't know how many people actually, or how many companies do third-party replacement catch springs. I know Orange Mod Works definitely still does them. But I got mine in this assorted pack of springs from Home Depot a couple of years ago. There's still a couple left in here, and there's also some long ones, so you can even, with a good pair of wire cutters, just snip down the longer ones to make stronger catch springs for yourself. So those are what we're going to be using. Now, let's break this down. Now, this is not a modulus system, but it does have all the fun stuff that the moduluses use. It has barrel attachment, which we will not be needing. It has a stock, which we will not be needing. And the clip we don't need right now, so that can go as well. Now, with this, all your screws are on one side of the blaster. On the white one, you can obviously see because you see the holes in them. But in case you're wondering, just looking quick, it's the one with the less detail on it. Like here you have the silver Nerf, Elite painted here, Retaliator's covered in blue. Here you have your caution and warnings, and do not aim at eyes or face. only use darts designated for this. Do not modify darts or dart blaster. Yeah, we're going to ignore that right now because that's the point of this. Now, there are 2 hidden screws when you're taking this apart. So once you remove all the screws and you're wondering why it's not coming apart, it's because underneath the slide is those 2 screws. People tend to forget about, so you do have to remove those in order to split the blaster in half. But also, you need to take off the stock attachment point as well. Now, there are 2 screws here that are holding it together, and we're going to take those off using the screwdrivers. And you just pull this off, put it aside. A little easy tip: if you just take that off, but you want to keep those screws separately so you don't lose them, just put the screws back in the hole, or you can try and screw them back in a little bit. This way, you know that these are specifically the screws for this, and that you will not lose them. So there's the one. And there's the other. So we know those screws go to this piece, they go off to the side. Now, I have a bunch of little bins that I usually put the screws into once I start stripping things down. There is a method to where you can take a screw out completely and put it aside or put it into a kind of a rough out drawing of the blaster itself. I've taken this thing apart so many times, I tend not to do that. But if there are any smaller screws, like here, and as you can see there, as I had mentioned, sometimes the bigger screwdriver doesn't always work. I'll probably wind up stripping it down with this one. This little screw is in the priming slide, along with the other one. And if I remember correctly, because it has been a while since I've taken apart a Retaliator, but if I remember correctly, I believe these are the only 2 small screws in the blaster itself. Everything else is going to be about the same size. There we go. Alright, so now that the shells are separated, this is what everything basically looks stock. I am going to take the spring off of there and just push the plunger back in. Now, this is your rail attachment piece that goes on top of the priming handle, which I never understood why those were ever in there to begin with. This is the internals of your Retaliator. We're going to be removing the locks because I find them unnecessary in this particular blaster, and I will show you which of those are getting removed and why we are removing them. First things first, let's get the slide separated off of the plunger assembly. Well, actually, you know what? Let's go over the pieces first. First, you have your breech. You have your plunger tube, your plunger, catch, trigger. This is your clip release along with clip and slide locks. This is your dart tooth, your barrel attachment piece, and an access door in case anything happens to jam. Now, the locks we are going to be removing are this and this. Reason being is for these reasons. One, in case you put a stronger spring load in here and you need to deprime your blaster because you've already racked it and you realize, oh crud, I don't have a dart, you can slide you'll be able to slide your plunger assembly back again. Or actually, no, I apologize. There. Okay, so here we have the inside of the Retaliator stock. I've removed the spring just because it's a little easier to work with like that. We'll go over everything here. We're going to remove certain things, keep things, and I'll explain why. Excuse me. We'll start from front, work our way back. This is your barrel attachment point, along with where the darts load into, along with the dart tooth. The dart tooth is actually what pushes your dart from the clip into the breech itself. You have your bolt sled, which is what slides this back into your plunger tube, which pushes the plunger back and gets it caught in this, which is your catch. You would pull the trigger back to release the catch, hence firing the dart. Now, when you were out of ammo and you needed to switch your clip, you would just pull on this piece, which is your clip release, and thus drop your clip, put a new one in. Now, what we are going to be removing are these two white pieces here. This is your slide lock, and this is your clip lock. Now, what these two things do is, one, this prevents you from re-racking the slide once you've already done so, but it also prevents you from, it also acts as a trigger lock to prevent you from pulling the trigger while you have the slide back. The reason this is being removed is because if you either A, remove the air restrictor, or B, put a stronger spinning load, or C, both, and you are out of ammunition, you don't want to dry fire this. So you pull it back, pull up your access door to see if you have any ammo. You realize, no, you don't. Oh, crud. What you do is you put the access door down, hold the slide, pull the trigger, and then slowly move everything back forward so that the spring tension releases slowly rather than all at once to fire something. You can't do that with this installed. The other thing is, if you want to just remove a clip or put a clip in without having to prime something, that's what prevents this from happening. Once the slide goes back, the trigger lock engages, but this actually disengages. So you'd actually be able to pull this without worry and be able to drop your clips out. Now, I removed this because I just like the ease of access of being able to remove my clip whenever I need to. Because in the heat of a battle, if I need to just switch out my clip or if I have a jam, it's going to be a lot easier to pull it out without having to worry about trying to rack it back and make sure it's fully racked. Other than that, everything else is going to stay in here. We're going to start with the removal of the locks, try and figure out what spring we're going to put in here, and then put everything back together. So, first things first, remove your trigger. Make sure you do not lose this spring. Set it aside. And also remove your catch. And again, do not lose the springs, because those are important springs. Your plunger assembly. Slide this back a little bit. Well, there goes the one lock. Now, you don't need to keep this or modify this in any way, shape, or form. You can just get rid of it, which is what we are going to do. There is another lock, the slide lock. This is also going to get removed as well. So we're going to slide that back a bit so we can get the clip lock. And again, you don't need anything out of here. These springs are pretty weak, so they're not even worth salvaging. And there's really not much you can do with this. I mean, you can hold onto it if you want it to use it for like spare plastic, but it's not really necessary. So we get rid of that. Now, This is the slide lock. As you saw before when I was trying to pull this back, trying to get the clip lock out, you saw it kind of got a little stuck. Well, that's what happens with the slide lock. It prevents the slide from moving whenever you need it to. So you just have two little screws right here. And what we're going to do is we're going to take them off. Pull that up, take that off. Spring and lock come out. And again, useless. Get rid of it. And just put this back in. And that's it. That's now completed. Now, we do have two things that we can add the Teflon tape to. One is... Oh, that's right. I forgot you can't pull out the O-rings on this one. Now, this actually does have a decent seal. But what we're going to do is we're going to actually add the Teflon tape here to keep this seal for that a little bit better. So, take your O-ring off. Get your Teflon tape. Since it's not very big, you don't need a lot. A little in this case will go a long way because it's not very big. Just take a little bit of the Teflon tape, wrap it around the edge where the O-ring will go. Now the existing grease on here will move the Teflon tape, but once you get it on, you got that there, and just put the O-ring back on, and there the O-ring is now not moving. You can add it back into here, so we're good to go on here. And you know what? We'll add it back to the shell itself as well. Now, in regards to this, the way this primes is this will connect to these little holes on the bolt sled itself. So when you're putting your sled back in, one, make sure that these posts are in these grooves. And make sure that post is going in this hole. So, alright, that is all now said and done. Oh, came off. Alright, so we don't even have to do anything over here. That's totally fine. We can take our catch. Since we're going to be adding a spring to it, we'll just replace the catch spring now. And it looks like it actually is kind of grooved, so we may actually need the wire cutters for this. Well, I'm going to use my wire cutters. If you have a spring that will fit on it, then that's totally fine. But I'm going to use my wire cutters just to take the bottom ring off. So that I can loop this around the post, and now that spring is good to go. Put this back in. This is, honest to God, one of the biggest pains in the butt to put into place and keep there. So, the catch is good to go. Now the question is, what are we going to add to this? Now, this is the original spring. And these are our other springs. What we can do is we can just put this one in and see how well it works. I wouldn't honestly double it, so I think we're just going to go with the 5 kilogram spring. So I'm going to put that in there now, and then just fix the catch. Now, this spring will actually rest when you're priming it, will actually rest back here. So if you're going to be doing any spring modifications, you always got to make sure it's got to fit into the blaster itself. And then just put the trigger back into place. and keep it in place. And that's it. We now have a modified Nerf Retaliator. Stronger spring, locks removed, and we're good to put this back together again. So I'm going to screw this back together, and then I will see you for the next part of this video. Okay, so here we have our lightly modified Retaliator put all back together. We took out the slide lock, we took out the clip lock, we took out the trigger lock, we added an upgraded spring here, and we added an upgraded catch spring. So I already explained why I did all of this when I was removing it. Now I will show you everything in action. Now, there are pros and cons to some of these, but the pros, in my opinion, more than outweigh the cons. First thing we're going to talk about is the slide lock. Now, I removed the slide lock because I've primed my blaster, I've moved my slide forward. Normally, this would actually lock the slide in place. You would not be able to move it. However, with the slide lock removed, I can do this whenever I want now. So, if you didn't remove the clip lock, this would be a great way to just take out your clip whenever you needed to or not. The only thing is, though, you still have to deprime your blaster because, obviously, even though this is not obviously repriming it, you did have to prime it at least once in order to get the slide back all the way. This is good for a slam fire modification, or if you want a little bit easier way of checking for jams, or if you're loaded. So, like, you can just do that and be like, alright, I'm good. Or, if you have a, sorry, brain fart for a second. Or if you have a slam fire kit that you want to throw in here, you're going to have to remove, if you're using the stock bolt sled, you have to remove that piece. Now, going on to the trigger lock, as I've said, this thing's been primed since the initial pullback that I did. Now, let's say I did an upgraded spring on here, I removed the air restrictor, but for some reason I left in all of the locks. So, alright, I just fired my last shot, I want to take my clip out. I have to deprime my blast, I have to remove the clip, I've done so, but now how do I fire off my blaster once the prime is forward, because I don't want to leave the spring under tension, but I also don't want to blow out all the work that I've done. Well, you can fiddle around, look for a dart, and try and, get it to fit in all nice and snug, and then fire, or you could just simply do this. And it's as simple as that. That is the benefit of the trigger lock removal. The trigger lock removal will allow you to deprime a blaster without having to dry fire it. Now, in my opinion, there is no con to this. There is a con to the Retaliator, to the slide lock, and I will get to that, but to me, there is no con to this removal. This is honestly one thing I would always recommend doing, especially for anything with a clip system. If there is a trigger lock on there, please try and remove it because it just makes functionality so much better. Now, as I was saying in regards to, there is a con to the slide lock. Con to the slide lock is this. It does make the slide a little looser. So, it's primed, I have it forward, and I can do this whenever I want. The only thing is, though, if it's not completely and totally forward and has a little bit of wiggle room, it will slide around a bit. So, but as long as it stays forward, it's fine, which is why, to me, the pro more than outweighs the con. Because as long as you keep the slide forward, it's fine. If you have it back or if you're not fully primed on it, well, one, that's going to screw you over anyway. But, at that point, yes, then it's moving, but a good motion forward and it's locked in place. So, there's that. Now, lastly is the clip lock. Now, it's easier to take the clip out while the breech is open. Very smooth, very simple. Also, you can do this trick. However, with the clip lock removed, you can also do this now. and that is remove the clip whenever you want. Because the downside to the clip lock is you have to have the blaster primed back. But now let's say you slide it forward, or you realize, oh wait, you just put an empty clip in by mistake or something like that. You then have to go forward, fire your shot, re-rack, or, just re-rack anyway if you have the slide lock removed to take out the clip. Although if you remove the slide lock, I don't know why you wouldn't have taken out the clip lock. The two definites are always clip and trigger. Clip and trigger, those are the two staples for any easy modification. The slide lock, that, this is your mileage may vary type of thing. If you want to, do it. If not, it's not a big loss. Like I said, all of these are just beneficial for making the operation smoother. Now, the downside is you do have to put a little bit more force to take out the clip and put it in. But to me, I don't know, it just kind of adds to the fun of it. Now, I also mentioned before about the AR being removed. We did not remove the AR out of this, and there is a good reason why. Within the N-Strike Elite line, there is no real good reason to remove the remove the AR from the blaster, unless you are either brassing this, which will be another episode, or if you're putting in like a crazy spring load in there, and even at that point, removing the air restrictor would be a minuscule improvement anyway. The reason we used to do it back in the days of the original N-Strike line is because those only hit like 35 feet arced as opposed to 75 feet arced. Removing the AR in one of the older blasters added 10 to 15 feet to your performance along with the proper spring upgrades, and that was a big deal. When you were playing with people who would hit like 30 feet and you can hit 50, believe me, that's an improvement. But the downside is, though, you could wreck your blaster very easily. Like, this is primed right now. I'm going through dry fire because I have the AR, and I know the 5 kilogram spring in here is not going to destroy it with the AR intact. Listen. Now, on camera, that may still sound kind of loud, but right here, this sounds just like nothing. Like if this was still completely and totally bone stock. Now, I have here my original Alpha Trooper. This also has a 5 kilogram spring in it from Orange Mod Works, so it's same spring power as in the Retaliator. This does not have it does not have its air restrictor anymore. I have removed it. It's also a reverse plunger, so this is a little bit more old school, so to speak. But just listen to what happens with this dry fires, because without an AR, it's still going to sound the same damn way. And that's just plastic on plastic hardness, and that's not having a good time. That will definitely wreck your blaster over time. So, that's why I left the AR in this one. Like I said, in future episodes, we will be doing removals of them, so you will see how to do it. But for now, at this stage, we don't need the spring is fine just the way it is to give us the performance increases that we needed. So that's everything for this modification guide for the Retaliator. Like I said, future episodes we will be revisiting this. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of Back to Basics. If you did, throw me a like, leave me a comment down below, let me know what you would like to see in future episodes of Back to Basics, or if you have any questions regarding this modification guide, or if you have questions in general. And if you did like this episode, please consider subscribing to the channel. There are more to come, not to mention my reviews and also other modification guides. So, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time. Later.